Hello. I guess we had a little bit of a hiccup with time zone, so I'm hoping that everybody's going to be able to join us right now. I know I'm starting a little bit late, so I apologize for that. That usually doesn't happen. I'm not sure what was going on there. But here we are, and it looks like there's a lot of you guys already present in class. So hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm happy that you guys could make it and that you stuck in there even though the class didn't start on time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what this class is about. And I think for most of you know already a little bit. Most of you probably have watched my videos or have read my weekly forecast. And you probably know that I always talk a little bit about, when I talk about a new moon or a full moon, or I talk about an aspect in my weekly forecast, I will always mention the signs that are most affected by that particular astrological placement, and also the degrees of the sign that are most affected by it. And so this class is really to help you guys understand how can you look into your own birth chart and make sure that you know the degrees and the signs that are applicable for each of these aspects for yourself, for your personal use. And also for the videos in terms of the full moons and the new moons, if this is something that you have to pay attention more this time of the month, rather than all the time, right? So I hope all this makes sense. So let's get started a little bit. I wanted to give you guys an example in terms of my weekly blog. For those of you who are people who follow my weekly blog, I have here 2 examples of what I do in my weekly blog. And I'll also refer a little bit to the videos a little bit later as well. So let me just get the pointer here. So with this weekly blog here, there in the beginning where you see the red here, that's basically showing you, what aspect I'm talking about, when it's exact, and then also how long we're going to experience the effects of this energy in our lives. And then I talk a little bit about the aspect, what it's about, and then at the bottom of that aspect, I will talk about, if you have an ascendant or a career point or personal planets in particular degrees and signs, then this aspect will be applicable to you more so than for other people, right? So let's talk about this part here, because I think this is the part that's most interesting for you personally. If you can look into your own chart and can see where in my chart is this taking place, does this affect me, then you can really work with the energies more fully, knowing that this is something that's affecting you personally, right? So let's look a little bit at a sample chart. So I use my own chart, my own personal chart as a sample chart here. And I don't want you to freak out right now because you're seeing all these different things that I marked in my chart. And I know there's a lot of information in this chart. It's very complex. So I don't want you to freak out because I'm going to make this very simple. Okay. So first of all, what we want to look at is the ascendant and the career point. Okay. Because those are the 2 things that I point out in all my videos and in all my weekly forecasts. So here, if you look and see that all of this whole chart is all of who you are, right? And if you think of it as like a clock, let's say, right? And you have 12 o'clock on the top here, and then this would be 9 o'clock on a watch, right? So if we look at 9 o'clock in the chart, this is the placement of the ascendant, and it's also called the rising sign, right? And it's also the beginning of the chart, right? So this is the beginning, and then the chart moves counterclockwise until it gets to the top of the chart, which that's the 12 o'clock. And that is the career point and the midheaven, or also called MC, okay? Now what we do want to look at is we want to look at the degree and the sign of the ascendant and the midheaven, or the career point, right? Because those are the 2 things that are important points in our charts. Now, the degree is always the number that has the bigger font, okay? So if you look at a chart like it is in my chart, if you have something like that, then in this case here, you can see how the bigger font is 28, right? And the smaller font is 44. We're going to ignore the smaller fonts just for now, because that we can use if we go into more advanced stages. But just for the purposes of this class today, we're going to ignore the smaller font. We're just going to look at the bigger font. We're going to look at 28 degrees, right? So this is the degrees of Libra. And this is the symbol for Libra, okay? If you guys are not familiar with the symbols of the signs, which I think most people are, but if you're not familiar, here is a chart that I'm going to be able to email to all of you. If you're watching this this class live, or also if you're watching it via the recording, just email me and I will email you all the charts that I have listed today. So you have all of this also as a printout at home, so you can go over that at home as well, okay? So basically, these are the symbols of the signs, and these are the names of the signs, right? And then we also have the symbols of the planets and the signs of the planets. But for now, let's just stay with the signs, right? So let's go to the chart, and we can see this is Libra. 28 degrees of Libra is my ascendant, and then my career point, or my midheaven, is 6 degrees of Leo, okay? Because the bigger font is the number 6, the smaller font is 54, okay? So we're ignoring the smaller font, we're looking at the bigger font. This is the degree, and this is the sign. So in your own chart, if you have your birth chart in front of you right now, what you can do is you can circle the top of the chart, the 12 o'clock, right? You can circle the 9 o'clock, and you can write next to it ascendant or rising sign. And up here you can write midheaven or career point. And that way you're never going to make a mistake about where is your career point and where is your ascendant. Now let's go back to the blog and let's just look and see how that applies in terms of the blog and the chart, right? So it says here, do you have your ascendant career point in 13 to 19 degrees of Cancer, Aries, Capricorn, or Libra? Now, we've already established that my rising sign is Libra, right? My ascendant is Libra. So that would be in relationship to this sign here. But let's look at the degrees, 13 to 19 degrees of Libra. So if we look at the chart, right, we can see that 28 degrees is higher than 13 to 19 degrees of Libra. So that means that this aspect doesn't actually apply to me as much as for someone who has the ascendant in 13 to 19 degrees of Libra. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? Can you guys follow me? By the way, guys, you can write into the chat window next to the below the video if you want to communicate with me. So if there's something that's not clear that I'm saying, something that's not clear that I'm communicating, please feel free to interact with me. Please feel free to chat with me and to let me know. Otherwise, there will be also a Q&A at the end of the class. So there will be time to answer general questions or other questions at the end of the class. But if there's something that you're not understanding right now and that's not clear right now, then definitely ask the question now. Okay? Does that make sense? Are we good? Is everybody good with me? Okay, I hope everyone's on board here with what I just shared. Okay, great. Thanks, Tina. Thanks for responding. Okay, fantastic. So let's go back to the blog and let's look at what else is going on here, right? So it also says any of your personal planets, right? So now we know what the ascendant is in the chart. Now we know where the career point is in the chart. But where are the personal planets, or what are the personal planets? So here's something that you can do that will make it a little bit easier for you to find and pinpoint the personal planets. And there is a table, a chart table that's at the bottom of your drawing of the chart. So here is the top. So if you have the chart here, right, on the bottom corner of that chart, which is down here, this here, right, this is the table that I have blown up here for you guys to see a little bit more clearly, right? And this table here, the first 5 planets that are listed those are your personal planets. Okay, so those are the most important planets for you to look at in relationship to my videos and to my blogs. Okay, and the way this list works is it will give you the symbol of the planet, right? And it will say what it is. And then right next to it, it will show you the degree of the planet. The degree of the position of the planet, what sign it's in, and then it will give you the sign, right? So TAU is Taurus, SKO is Scorpio, and so on, right? I mean, I guess you probably can guess what they are. If you can't, then definitely look to see, right? Like look at it, it will always give you the first 3 letters of the sign, right? So if you're not sure, I'm going to email this to you so you can always look it up in this chart as well. Okay? Does that make sense? So basically, let's go back to the personal planets. So these 5 planets are the most important, and you want to look at the degrees and the signs that they're in relationship to the blocks, right? And then if one of your personal planets is in 13 to 19 degrees of Libra, Aries, Capricorn, or Cancer, then definitely you are the one who's more connected to this particular aspect. Now, I don't have any planets, any personal planets in 13 to 19 degrees of Aries, Libra, Capricorn, or Cancer. So this aspect doesn't really apply to me that big time, right? I mean, it will apply on some level, but not as strongly, right? Now down here, I also marked a little bit of a box here, which shows you the ascendant and the MC and the degree and the sign of the ascendant and the MC. Okay? So basically here as well, you don't necessarily have to look at the wheel of your chart. You can also just look at this table to get all the different positions of your personal planets and rising sign and career point that you need by just looking at this table. Now, if you're a little bit more familiar with astrology and you feel more comfortable looking at a wheel, looking at the chart, then definitely feel free to do so. And here's also, I also pointed out here, you know, what the moon is in my chart, what Mars is in my chart, Mercury, the Sun, and Venus. So as you can see here, I marked them very beautifully. So you can see which one of these symbols is what planet, right? And we can also see that the ones that I marked are definitely the personal planets, right? So those are the ones we want to pay attention to. Now let's go back to that blog, because there's one more thing that we want to look at, right? So now it says here, this is also true for those of us who have our ascendant or sun sign in Taurus, Libra, or Aquarius, okay? Because Venus, which is part of this aspect, rules Taurus and Libra, and Uranus, which is part of this aspect as well, rules Aquarius. So this means that the planets that are connected to a sign, and here I also very beautifully made an arrow here for you guys to see which signs belong to which planet, right? So it says here the ruler, this is the ruler and this is the sign, right? So we have all the signs and we have all the planets that are rulers to those signs, right? And that's important too, because if you have, let's say, okay, let's use my example again, right? So if I'm a Libra rising, then I look it up in this chart. Okay, let's look at Libra and let's see, okay, Venus is the ruler of Libra. So that means that any aspect that includes Venus in my chart, that includes Venus in the aspect, right? Anything that I'm talking about in the weekly blog that includes Venus, that is important to me because I'm a Libra rising, okay? And also, if you are a Taurus sun sign, Taurus is also ruled by Libra, by Venus, right? So if you look at Taurus here, Venus is the planet that belongs to Taurus, right? So again, if you have a Taurus sun sign or a Taurus rising sign, any aspect that includes Venus is important for you. Okay, so for me, because I'm a Taurus with a Libra rising, Venus is always important for me because that rules both of those things. It rules my sun sign and it rules my ascendant. Okay, does that make sense, guys, what I'm sharing here? Can you guys follow what I'm trying to explain here? Does that make sense? Thanks, Ingrid. Okay, excellent. Okay, if anybody is not clear about what I'm sharing, then definitely feel free to ask questions, okay? Now, let's go back to this chart here. This chart here is a very important chart because one thing that it can help you with, and I'm going to email this to you if you want it, right? What you want to look at with this chart here is you want to look at, okay, what's my sun sign and what's my ascendant, right? Which is what I kind of gave an example already with my chart, right? So if your sun sign is Cancer, then the moon is going to be very important in your chart, right? Same deal if your ascendant is Cancer. If your ascendant or sun sign is Cancer, the moon is going to be very important, which means that any aspect that includes the moon is important to you, and any moon cycle is important to you. So all the new moons and full moons are definitely important to you if you are a Cancer sun sign or rising sign, okay? Because you respond to the movement of the moon, the cycles, the cycles or the movements of the moon corresponds with you more on a personal level than to someone who doesn't have a sun sign or rising sign in Cancer. Okay? Does that make sense what I'm trying to explain here, right? So when I talk about in my videos, right, when I talk about particular planets making aspects, when I talk about at the end of the video that certain degrees and signs are more affected by a particular new moon or full moon, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, looking at the degree of your ascendant, looking at the degree of your midheaven, and looking at the degrees of your personal planets. And you can either do this in your chart, in the wheel of the chart, or you can do it in the table of the chart as well, right? So whatever is easier for you, whatever you feel makes more sense to you or is easier for you, I would say do what works the best for you. But just remember, these are the personal planets, this is the ascendant rising sign, and this is the midheaven career point. Okay, and that's it. That's all the things we want to focus on, right? Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention with the chart is I wanted to talk a little bit about the houses, right? Because sometimes when I talk about a video, I will also say, depending on what area of life this is occurring for you in, whatever house it's occurring in, that's the area of your life that you need to pay attention to, right? So in the video, what I do a lot of the time is I will say, reach out for a reading if you want to know what area of your life is going to be affected by this. Now, if you know where the full moon is taking place, what degree and what sign, right? So let's say the full moon is in 13 degrees of Leo, right? So now we want to look in the chart. Where is Leo in the chart and where is 13 degrees, right? And just remember that it all goes counterclockwise, right? So Leo in my chart is right here on the top of the chart and it's in 6 degrees. So 13 degrees would have to be to the left of that MC, of that midheaven, right? Because it goes counterclockwise. It counts up towards the left, right? So 13 degrees of Leo would be here. So if the full moon takes place in 13 degrees of Leo, right, then it takes place in the 10th house. And so if you see these little numbers here that go from 1 to 12 counterclockwise, right? These are the houses. And each house is an area of your life, okay? And so this helps too to know what area of your life is being affected by a new moon or a full moon. Now let's go back to this table here, which I've already shown you guys, right? At the bottom of this table, I wrote down houses 1 through 12. You can look up the meaning of each of these houses on wiki.astro.com. It's sort of like a Wikipedia for astrology, right? And it's fantastic because you can just put in something into the search engine and whoops, right? It's right there and you can have everything that you need, right? So I would recommend that if you want to look into this more deeply, besides just the rising sign, the MC, or the personal planet, you want to also look at the houses, then go to wiki.astro.com and use this link. Again, I'm going to email all of this to you so you will have that so you can just plug it in. But if you want to, if that gets a little bit too complicated for you and you want to stop with just doing it for the sun sign, the ascendant, the rising sign, and the personal planet, which are these first couple here, then feel free to stop there. That will give you a lot of information to begin with already, okay? Now, let me just go to something else that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of the birth chart, right? How do you get a print out of your birth chart if you don't already have one, right? So there are several ways how you can get a printout of a birth chart. One would be to go to astro.com. They give you free printouts of your birth chart. If you click on the number 4 tab when you go to that website, there's like number 1, 2, 3, 4 that are listed on all the free stuff that you can get from them. And the number 4 tab has chart drawings, and you click on chart drawings, and then you just put in your information, right? And then it will produce a chart, and you can print it out, and that's your birth chart, okay? The other way to get a birth chart would be through the Time Passages app, which is an app that you can use for your iPhone and for your iPad. I'm not sure it's available for Android as well, but it might be because I'm not familiar with the Android apps. But you may want to look into if it's available for Android phones as well. But definitely for iPhone and iPad. Now the Time Passage app, when you get that, I think it's for free even. I mean, the very basic version is for free, and that's really all you need in order to get your birth chart, right? You plug in your information, and it will show you your birth chart. It will give you a wheel of your birth chart, right? Then also what I want to mention is if you've ever done a reading with me in the past, you probably have your birth chart already because I always send you a birth chart and a recording of our session. If you don't have that birth chart, or if you have misplaced it or you can't find it, then definitely reach out to me. If I've done a reading with you, I can send you that birth chart. If you want to do a reading with me in the future, then that's always going to be a part of that reading as well. You get your birth chart, you get the recording of the session. Okay, so just so you know that that's available, and here's where you can get the readings from me. Now, what do you need to get a birth chart? What information do you need? The only 3 things you need is your birth date, the month, the day, and the year, the birth time, and the birth place. And the birth time is very important because it's important to get that as accurately as possible if you can. Now, of course, there's going to be people who don't have access to the birth time, right? And that happens because some people just, their parents don't remember when they were born and it wasn't written on the birth certificate, so it's not always clear. So if you do not have access to your birth time, don't worry. It's okay. If you don't have access to your birth time, you put 6 a.m. as your birth time because that puts the sun on the ascendant, and it's what's called a sunrise chart. And it helps you to see your own life from your own personal perspective. So sunrise charts are very common in astrology. They're done by many astrologers for people who do not have their birth times, and they work very well. Okay? So do not despair if you don't have your birth time. If you do have your birth time, great. Then definitely make sure you have it as exact as possible, because even just 10 minutes in difference of birth time can make the difference in terms of what your rising sign is, what your ascendant is. Because the ascendant is what's on the horizon when you take your first breath, right? So depending on what month and what day you were born, the time that you were born will determine what's on the horizon and what rising sign you are. Okay? All right, great. So that's basically how to get a birth chart. Are there any questions about this in terms of what I just shared here about the birth chart? Is that clear? Does that all that make sense? Just want to make sure you guys are still with me. Okay, makes sense. Awesome. So now the last thing I want to share before we go to the Q&A, I just wanted to mention to you guys that I do teach astrology classes online, and I also do weekend courses all over the country. So if you guys get the bug and you want to dive a little bit deeper into astrology, that's definitely available. So let me know if you do. I have on my website, there is a page called Online Courses, and then there's also a page called Weekend Courses. So you can go to those pages and just check out what's available. The one thing that I recommend starting with is Soul-based Astrology, the basics, which really gives you the basics of how to read the whole wheel, how to interpret all the signs, all the planets, all the aspects, and really everything that we need to know so that we can read our own birth chart from A to Z, right? This course starts in October again as a live class, as an online live class. But if you are impatient and you want to jump in right away and you don't want to wait until October, you can also watch a recording of the last Soul-based Basics course that is available at a discount right now. Okay? So that's possible. If you're not sure if you would like to jump into a basics course and really learn that much about astrology, or if you're not sure if this resonates with you, here's what I recommend. There will be an introduction to my Soul-based Astrology courses on September 9th. It's a 75-minute live webinar, and I will talk about Soul-based Astrology in terms of what it is that I teach, and how important it is to approach the chart in that way. So if that's something that you want to partake in, that's available on September 9th. And that's very inexpensive. That's only $25. And again, if you don't want to wait until September 9th, if you're impatient, which I understand because I'm very impatient myself, so this is why I make these things available. There is a recording of the last intro that I did available at a discount, and you can watch it right away via the recording, and you can get a sense whether you want to jump into a little bit more of a deeper exploration with me, or if that's not for you, and that's fine too. Okay, so that's what's available. So I just wanted to share what's available. Any of you, obviously, you can do whatever resonates with you, whatever feels right to you, whatever is right in terms of timing for you right now. These are ongoing classes, so this is not the last one that I'm going to be teaching. And yeah, so that's what's available. So please, now it's time for our Q&A. So please, anybody who has any question about this class, what we just shared about, anything about astrology that I can answer, or anything about my Soul-based Astrology classes, feel free to write in the chat window and write in what it is that you want to know. Do you cover transits? Great question, Ingrid. Thanks so much for asking that. The transits is more of an advanced tool, and I do cover transits in my astrology classes, but not yet in the basics class. So the basics class is really all about the birth chart. And then when we go to the advanced course, that is when we cover the transits and the progressions of the chart. And the reason why I need to do it that way is because I need to be able to build up the knowledge so that people are, because transit is very complex, and it's very, it's something that really, you need to have a really good basic understanding of astrology in order to understand the transit. And that's why it's something that I do in the advanced course. Does that make sense? Yeah. So anybody has any other questions about how to read your birth chart of what we covered today, about my weekly blogs, about my videos, anything at all? Anything at all. I'm wide open. I'm at your disposal right now. Take advantage. And by the way, if you're watching this as a recording and you happen to have a question that is connected to what we talked about in this class and that's not clear, then definitely feel free to reach out and I will definitely answer your questions. If it's anything that's connected to you personally, to your chart in terms of interpretation, then I would ask you to reach out for a reading, even if it's just a mini reading, because that means I would have to prepare your chart. I would have to look at it, and that takes time for me to do. So definitely, if it's something more personal, then please reach out and book a reading. Okay? All right, wait, we have one more question. Excellent. So on the personal planets, the first number is the degree, and what's the number after the sign? Okay, so let's go back to the chart so I can show that a little bit better. So here in my chart, so the question is the first number. So the number that has the bigger font, right? So as you can see, there's two numbers, right? The first number has a bigger font, and then the second number has a smaller font, right? And the number that has the bigger font, that is the number of the degree. And then the second number, we're going to ignore. It is the minutes. It's the minutes of the degree, but we're not interested in that unless we're doing more advanced stuff. So for right now, don't worry about it. Unless you're going to study with me, then we're going to talk about that as well. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Tina? Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Awesome. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So, are there any more questions? Any more questions? Please feel free to ask. This is your time now where you can get free support from me. So I want you to take advantage of that if you can. If everything's clear and you don't have any questions, that's great. Then I feel like I did my job well and everything's wonderful. I can see that somebody is typing, so I'm going to wait just a moment longer because I know that the typing sometimes takes some time. Ingrid says, thanks so much. Okay, great. So it looks like Ingrid is complete. So definitely, guys, if you are complete, thank you, Patty. Thank you, Heidi. Awesome. So if you guys are complete and you feel like that this was valuable, then definitely reach out to me to let me know that you want to have all this, the whole class. I can give all of this to you in PDFs, in an email. I can send all of this to you. So if you're interested in that, definitely ask me, reach out to me, and I will send it to you either tomorrow or on Monday. So you have everything. You can print it out and you can watch the class again because this is being recorded, right? So you can watch the class again with the printouts once you have the printouts, and then that way it will make even more sense possibly, right? Okay, guys. I hope this was valuable for everybody. And again, if you're watching this as a recording, definitely reach